Uncle Stevie can just walk up the aisle like he's at the supermarket. I'll get a starting pitcher here, I'll get a closer here, I'll get a first baseman here, and he'll just keep throwing things in the cart because there is no limit.
Now he's gone, so they got to go get arms to make that team better. Because the bottom line was they were just outclassed by the Dodgers. Let's face it, they got their ass beat.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I want the mid-major teams. I want the A-10 to get 3 bids. I want, the Missouri Valley Conference to get an extra bid. I want these teams to go ahead that are 1-bid leagues and give some of these other teams opportunities to make the NCAA tournament. Simply put, folks, when we get to the tournament, we don't care about all these teams that are big-time teams.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How do you find some of this great talent that you've brought in, who are still early in their career, might not have a ton of tape on them yet?
I've been around this business, man, for almost 20 years. So a lot of these guys will tell you that I popped into a lot of gyms, sparred or just worked on the side or, kind of worked out, just watching. I've always loved this sport, man. I think it's the greatest. And we want to continue to put on the next up-and-coming superstars. We know we got them.
Only on SportsGrid.
The NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, the Purdue job this morning, where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill.
And let's say it's late December, and we see 7, 8 teams open, and none of them want Bill. Then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach?
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. College football bowl season rolls on. We got a Boca Raton Bowl to recap from last night. Also another one tonight. And then, of course, some of the big games coming up this weekend. Also National Football League game on Thursday Night Football. We will preview that as well. And also, as I mentioned, Friday night's game is a big game for Notre Dame. And our buddy Mike Berardino, who covers the Fighting Irish, going to give us a preview of the home college football playoff game. First of its kind in 12-team playoff, as he joins us a little bit later in the show. So that and a whole lot more on this edition of the program. Let's get started with the story we gave you yesterday, but it looks like we have to hit the pause button on it today. It's more of a sports betting story, which really isn't capturing maybe a lot of headlines elsewhere, but for our show, it certainly is. Jonte Porter, you may remember him. I'll review again, former NBA player who was accused of throwing games, essentially, because of his player props. He was the player that was pleading a guilty conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Yesterday was supposed to be the sentencing. He played on the Raptors. There were some player props that were posted on the sports books, and Porter left games early so that he would go under on some of these folks. Yes, this is what was happening. Well, in November, the sentencing was pushed back to May 2025, so we won't find out exactly what kind of jail time Porter receives. He's expected to receive some, but this is the legalese of what's going on here. So check back with us in May around Memorial Day, and we'll find out. May seems like a long time from now. We still got a Super Bowl to get to, an NCAA Final Four, a lot more as well. All right, Patrick Mahomes is a full participant. Looks like he's going to go this coming Saturday. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs have a Saturday game this week, and then, of course, they play on Christmas Day, which you can catch our coverage here on SportsGrid. Next Wednesday, I'll be part of that, so hopefully you can check me out. T.J. Watt returns to practice. That's good news for the Steelers. Ahead of their game with the Ravens, George Pickens remains out. So Pickens right now seems to be questionable for the game, and the Steelers offense really struggles without him. Michael Penix Jr. getting ready for his first career start. We reported this yesterday that he's going to get the call over Kirk Cousins, who goes to the bench. And like many other people, just like you and me, Michael Penix was shopping yesterday at Costco when he got the call, and he was told that he's going to start this week.
Yeah, I was actually shopping. I was shopping with my girlfriend. We was at Costco, and I got the call, and they told me that I was going to be the starting quarterback, for the rest of the season, and As you can imagine, it was some nerves, it was excitement, but I'm just super blessed to be in this position, super blessed to be on this team for the opportunity. And, it was always like I always say, my family, they always say, just trusting God, trusting the process, and, go about each and every day, with that trust and belief that whenever it's your time, it's your time. And they called last night and they said it was my time. So, just the mental reps, that was always there, always make sure I'm prepared, preparing like the starter and always being ready because I didn't know when my number was going to be called. It could have been called at any point, so just me making sure I was ready, that was the biggest thing. And, as far as you talking about like the physical part, as far as getting the reps with the guys, that'll come this week. And we got this week to prepare. And, I already talked to some of the receivers and they said they're ready to, get those reps. If we got to do it after practice to get more, they're willing to. And, that's the biggest thing, just make sure I find time to get with those guys. So.
I think right now Michael Penix is probably as excited as he's ever been over the course of his college or pro football career. Okay, last night in the bowl game last night, the LA Bowl, just before the game, one of UNLV's top players said, I'm not playing in this one. Regardless, the line totally flipped. Cal was favored, and then UNLV somehow was favored. You really have to either be watching us here at SportsGrid or paying close attention to these lines, folks, because they are like literally flipping. But Cal last night just didn't show up for this one. 24-13 as UNLV wins. By the way, the Rebels' new head coach is Dan Mullen, and he's going to take over immediately after the game. Also, congratulations in order here in Boca Raton, where James Madison came back to beat Western Kentucky by a final of 27-17. They covered the 6.5-point spread. It was the first ever bowl win for James Madison University, and you'll see here in this clip, they were awarded the Howard Schnellenberger Trophy. Schnellenberger built the FAU program and, of course, former head coach there and at the University of Miami. Here's Bob Chesney on the first ever bowl win.
Yeah, I think just a great moment in the history of our program to be the first ever, to do anything for the first is a big deal, and to do it down here in Boca at a bowl game, matters a lot to this, not only program, but to the community and to all these young men that believed, and, to assemble the group like we did in a very short period of time and to have them believe and fight for one another, and then have the next man up mentality throughout the entire day, throughout the entire week, really throughout the entire year. And then we talk about it all the time, but at some point that light shines on you. And I don't know if 11 and 12 over here thought it would shine on like it did, but when that does, it's either going to, reveal you for all the work you've done, or it's going to expose you for the work you didn't do. And to be, the backup and the backup to the backup and all of those things that they were throughout the year. They battled, they stayed the course, they never ever gave up. And glad that light shined on them, had a chance to reveal all the hard work they've done up to this point in time.
All right, so big win for JMU in Boca last night. Wake Forest has hired their new head coach. Jake Dickert is going to take over officially and immediately. Also in the transfer portal, John Mateer has chosen to transfer to Oklahoma. He's left Washington State. Mateer was considered one of the top players in the transfer portal. Meanwhile, the University of Alabama, their athletic director is telling, how about this, fans to fight back to help fund these NILs. Kind of peculiar, but let's give you the statement here from Greg Byrne, the athletic director. Although we have been competitive from an NIL standpoint, our competition has us in their sights, and you're actively trying to surge ahead with NIL. You've heard examples of other teams using promises of $1 million paydays to lure away players or convince them not to come to Alabama. It's time for Bama Nation to fight back. Okay, fair enough. Get as much money as you can for these kids. Caden Salter has joined Colorado. He's transferring from Liberty. Shedeur Sanders is headed to the NFL. Maybe he becomes a starter next season. San Jose star wide receiver Nick Ash has opted out of the Hawaii Bowl, which I believe is the only game played, if I'm not mistaken, on the 31st of December each year. And Eli Sanders heading to USC for 1 year after leaving New Mexico. Folks, it is hard to keep up with all of these transfers, but me and Frank and Luke, we're doing our best every day to tell you who's going where. All right, so tonight it is the New Orleans Bowl. It's the lone game on the schedule. And Georgia Southern, my understanding is, going back and looking at these lines when they came out, Georgia Southern was 6.5-point favorites. For some reason, it is now down to 4.5. I guess they have some players transferring. Sam Houston State plus 4.5 tonight, total of 48.5. So this is expected to be a closer game than maybe it was a couple of weeks ago. Auburn basketball star, Wooden Award winner Johnny Broome avoids shoulder surgery. Good news for him. MRI results show that he's not going to miss extended time. Crazy game in college basketball last night between Oklahoma and Michigan. We talked about this yesterday. My gosh, Michigan has lost some really close games. This time, Jeremiah Fears, great player for Oklahoma, converts a 4-point play with just 11 seconds left to beat the Wolverines by a final of 87-86. Michigan has now lost in consecutive weeks by a bucket, first to Arkansas, now, of course, to Oklahoma. Dusty May, head coach of the Wolverines, gave all the credit for the big shot by Fears.
Both teams competed at a high level, and obviously it came down to the last possession, and Fears made a big-time shot, especially in this environment. But I thought our guys battled. They competed. We're better than we were a week ago, and so as gut-wrenching as a game like this is, you've got to find a way to keep moving forward. It's not one thing. We've got to get more of a killer mindset. We took care of the ball much better today. There were still a couple errors just on basic entries that they turned into a pick six late. We botched a blob. That's on me. We ran a very basic play to get it into Vlad's hands, and somebody saw something and bumped back the play. But that's on me. We got to execute better in that situation, especially late clock. And the last possession, just like at the Garden, Danny in open court, busted floor and a ball screen. We're going to get a wide open shot, and he created that, and got a good look at it.
I think right now Michigan just needs some days off here for the Christmas holiday. All right, let's get to the latest in the National Football League. Matt Lutovsky joins us next. Don't go away.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all, because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Grady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Matt Lutovsky is with us from Sporting News. Matt, are you ready for all the games here in the NFL? I mean, we're going to be inundated starting tonight with college and pro football. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. I mean, I feel like every day there's some sort of football going on. It just wasn't like this in the past. I'm not used to it.
No, I'm not either totally, but I think we've had a little bit of a run-up the past few years to dealing with this. The Wednesday game this year, or games this year for Christmas, add a little flavor to it. But we'll be ready. We always are. It's that time of year, so let's do it.
All right, so Matt's ready. Gives him more content over at Sporting News. I can accept it. I'm out of my fantasy football playoffs here, so all I have is a tear to shed here for a sincere tear for my guy Sincere McCormick. Anyway, bad joke. Okay. Chargers tonight taking on the Broncos. Chargers -2.5. Boy, have the Chargers kind of thud back to earth here. You know, going back, Matt, and looking at it, I do think the Broncos are probably a better team than the Chargers right now. But, I guess my question would be about the Chargers for you, Matt. The first half of their schedule, when I went back and looked, it was so soft. And I guess that I glossed over that. And now that they're playing some really good teams, it seems like especially their defense is completely going the other way. And I wonder if fool's gold was the first half of the season for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that was the case. I mean, they weren't a very good team last year, and they came in, they lost a lot of key players in the offseason, and they looked really good, and I think you can chalk some of that up to coaching. But right now, where they're at is sort of a mediocre team that looks like it's going to limp into the playoffs. And the J.K. Dobbins injury was a really big deal. He was having a fantastic season for them. That was their identity, was this running game, defense, and then Justin Herbert would make plays when he needed to. So when you take that element away, I think it makes them a little more one-dimensional. We've seen some bigger games from Herbert here the last couple weeks, and it hasn't resulted in wins. And that's sort of the story of the old Chargers. So I think they're still a better team than they used to be. I think they're still better coached. And they certainly can win this game. There's no doubt about that. They're at home, though I don't know how much of a home field advantage the Chargers ever have when they're LA. And Denver's the type of team that's sort of a national brand. Their fans are going to travel really well. I think this could feel like a Denver home game at times. But their defense is legit. Their defense makes them so tough. And it helps them overcome for the fact they have a rookie quarterback who he's looked really good a lot. Don't get me wrong. But he's still a rookie quarterback, and we know that they can have their ups and downs. But that defense is very good. They have some really good individual players. They've been making big plays the past few weeks. I worry sometimes about their running game or lack thereof if they can sulk games away. But they're just a solid overall team. I think this is going to be a real tough one for the Chargers, but I think it's going to be a really good game.
All right, I hope so. Thursday Night Football has actually been pretty good lately. And so right now the wild card is wide open for the AFC if the Chargers win tonight. If not, then I think we know exactly who's getting in. It looks like it's the Ravens, Broncos, potentially, and Chargers. But if the Chargers lose for some reason, all of a sudden this door is back open for Indianapolis, Miami, and then there are some that feel that the Bengals are still lurking, maybe at a 9-8 scenario. All right, meanwhile, the point spread is completely flipped. It was Chiefs pick'em against the Houston Texans 2 days ago. With the news that Patrick Mahomes is going to play, that thing just shot right back up. It is Kansas City -3.5 coming up on Saturday. What's interesting for me here, Matt, is the total is just 41.5 points. I would say not so much because of Kansas City, but because of Houston, Matt. Like, Houston has had just such trouble scoring this season. Joe Mixon's had a really nice year for them, and it feels like, at least for me, that DeMeco Ryans has just basically said he's the only thing that is consistent. Let's just keep giving him the ball. You know what happens when you run the ball. These games tend to go under.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the way I look at this classic sort of ugly Saturday matchup. I don't think two teams that are bound for the playoffs. Obviously, with Patrick Mahomes banged up, I don't think we're going to see the Chiefs putting their foot on the gas pedal a lot. They're going to do what they do, and that's just enough to win. If that's the case, the Texans aren't a horrible team by any means. They're going to win their division again, but they also just haven't been a great team this year. And like you said, they run the ball really well. Joe Mixon's been really good, and then they're getting some good situational red zone play at times with Nico Collins stepping up. They might get the occasional Tank Dell big play. But for the most part, that offensive spark just hasn't been there like it was last year with C.J. Stroud for whatever reason. He's capable of it. That's why, if you were an under better, I think you got Patrick Mahomes and C.J. Stroud in the same game. I think you're going to be a little worried till that final whistle. But at the same time, this game just looks like it's set up to be low scoring. And like you said, that total is very low. But at the same time, I just don't expect a lot of fireworks. I mean, Kansas City had trouble with Cleveland last week, and it's not as if Patrick Mahomes was injured at halftime. He wasn't injured until well into the second half, and they still sort of just limped along and did what they had to do, and they won the game and moved on with their lives. And over bettors were left trying to pick up the pieces of theirs, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, let's move on to this game, Matt. I want your thoughts on this. I don't ever recall the Ravens being more than a 3-point favorite or the Steelers being more than a 3-point favorite ever in this series. 6.5 points. I have to blind bet Pittsburgh in this game, not knowing anything. This game comes down to the end every single time. Total 45.5. I think this is a reaction, in my opinion, Matt, to last week's game, which we talked about. It seemed like a weird line that Philly was 5.5-point favorites over Pittsburgh. But, man, I'm not going to fall for this thing twice. I got to back Pittsburgh in this one.
Yeah, I think those are the right instincts. Obviously, if TJ Watt doesn't play, that changes the equation a little bit. We know George Pickens is going to be out. Those are two of their 5 best players. George Pickens seems to be kind of what makes the offense go on that team. Without him, I mean, they have to really be perfect, even against a Ravens defense that isn't quite as good as years past. But I definitely think that the Steelers can keep pace. Obviously, they beat them before. That was in Pittsburgh. It's going to be tough. The Ravens are playing really well. Derrick Henry has slowed down a little bit, though. And for whatever reason, the Steelers just play well against Lamar Jackson. I don't know what it is. 0-4 in his last 4 starts against them. You know, you never want to say a team has a guy like Lamar Jackson's number by any means. He can have a big game against anyone. So I do like the Ravens to win. But like you said, I mean, there's just something when these teams get together. And they're both looking ahead to Wednesday already, too. So you don't know what's going to happen in this one.
Yeah, big rivalry game. You're right. They got to play 2 games quick. All right. Thanks again, Matt, for coming on the show. Happy holidays to you and your family. We'll catch up again soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News. Coming up next, we got Kevin Walsh in the house. He's got a preview of this first round matchup, Penn State, with their season on the line. Don't go away.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Time to get a preview of one of the college football games, the big one coming up this weekend. Also, why are people not watching the NBA? And we'll get into a little New York Yankees baseball. I know Frank is happy with that. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. The good news is a lot of people are going to be watching the college football playoff. The bad news is it looks like a lot of tickets are available for these games. Remember, these were not season tickets for a lot of the student athletes. And by the way, a lot of them are not even in school while these games are going on. A really interesting dynamic. You can buy tickets for a lot of these places for under $100. I don't think they anticipated that in college football, but I digress. This week, SMU takes on Penn State, one of the marquee matchups in the upcoming college football playoff. Let's hear from Kevin Walsh. He's got a preview of the game.
The college football playoff is getting underway. Saturday, we'll see Penn State host SMU. Penn State in the news a little bit this week. They got good news at the quarterback position that Drew Aller is going to come back next season. Some thought Aller could potentially make the move to the NFL. What happened, though, because the fact that Aller is coming back, we saw Penn State's other quarterback, Bo Pribula, hit the portal. And Pribula was not just the QB in waiting, but he was used occasionally in some of the RPO packages for Penn State due to his athleticism. I wonder now as we look at Penn State SMU, without Pribula on the roster, does Aller have to run a little more? We saw Aller run a ton in the Big Ten title game, had over 50 yards against Oregon. His prop right now out there for college football prop bettors, just 16.5 on the ground. Certainly something to keep eyes on. Craig, it's back to you.
All right, Kevin. Well, I will see you guys this weekend on Saturday. I'm looking forward to some of the big games in college football. Meanwhile, the National Basketball Association seems to have a ratings problem, especially when it comes to some of these regular season games. You don't know who's going to play, when they're going to play, etc. Well, Joe Mazzulla weighed in on some of these issues that the NBA is having, and one of the topics of discussion would be moving back the three-point line. Less scoring, potentially, in the NBA. Is that an easy fix, or is it even a legitimate request? Mazzulla referred to the National Football League in terms of scoring to try and make his point.
It's an interesting perspective, I think, because in the NFL, people aren't like, I want to see less scoring. They're not going to make the end zone smaller. They're not going to make the field smaller. So, scoring is up across in other sports. And I guess my question would be is why in basketball is scoring up being an issue as opposed to other sports? Does anybody want to watch a football game and see less touchdowns? So I think at the end of the day, I think, anything new or change is different, but, I don't know. No, I mean, I add to that. I don't watch NBA games, so I'm just as much the problem as anyone else is. Is there a reason for that? I don't like watching the games.
He's just like me. Just like me. All right. I'm looking forward to baseball season. Football season coming to an end, baseball season for me, that's what's up next. College basketball, too, I want to say that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Max Fried performs under the lights in the Bronx. He's going to be the new number 2 starting pitcher on the New York Yankees. He made his deal official yesterday and said that the reason why he picked New York over some other spots, of course, is the idea that the Yankees will win.
Winning's a big priority for me. And, at the end of the day, every single year the Yankees come to spring training, the number one goal is to win a World Series. It's not to get to the playoffs. It's not to do anything besides hold up the trophy at the end of the year. And, knowing that I was going to make potentially a long commitment, I wanted to be able to be in a place that I knew I was going to be able to win year in, year out. And, I love playoff baseball, and I love to be able to have meaningful baseball at the end of the year. And the Yankees are an organization that are going to do that year in, year out. There's no bigger stage than pitching in New York. And I've been here for a couple series. I got to throw my first time last year. I'm still looking to feel what that feels like to be able to throw under the lights because I got a Sunday day game. So I'm really excited. But there's a different feel when you step into the stadium and you feel the energy and the buzz. And I can't wait to kind of feed off of that.
I think right now the Yankees are continuing to make a big free agent push. Right now that they have added a couple of players. They've traded for Bellinger. They certainly have added Max Fried. Could someone else be in the mix? We also found out yesterday Nolan Arenado blocked a trade to the Houston Astros. So he's still on the St. Louis Cardinals for now. We'll take a quick time out here on the show. Adam Kaufman joins us next. We'll go over some player props and also some matchups for the NFL's games this weekend. Don't go away.
there's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. We got plenty to cover here on the show. We'll get to some National Football League previews with Adam Kaufman, who's going to join us here on the show, and get into the NFL, including Thursday Night Football. Adam, welcome to NewsWire. Thanks for coming on the show. Adam, do we have Adam? There he is. Hey, Adam, what's going on?
What's going on? How are you?
Great to see you, Adam. We got a big weekend of NFL games here, so we're doubling down on a Thursday night preview game between the Broncos and Chargers. All of a sudden, the Chargers seemingly, Adam, have gone the other direction, have had a really hard time since the halfway point of the season, including getting blown out and losing in games. They're still favored tonight against the Denver Broncos. Feels like everyone is pushing us toward Denver tonight. Go take Denver. Take these points. Take these points. Is that the right side, though? The Chargers, I feel like Chargers are going to be supremely motivated after getting their butts whipped last week against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I can't find a game on the slate that I have less of a clue how it's going to play out when it comes to the spread and who's going to win. I mean, sure, like if you can get Denver +3, that to me feels like the side simply because Denver is playing better football of late. You know, obviously I realize the Broncos are on the road. Like you said, you look for a bounce back from the Chargers. I understand all of that. The thing that makes me want to ultimately side with the Broncos and even maybe sprinkle the money line if I was going to go that way, just because obviously the spread is as slim as it is I don't know what Herbert is going to look like out there with this high ankle sprain that he suffered last time out. And if he is hobbled against a defense that is, you know, this Vance Joseph defense is ferocious in terms of the pressure, is solid in general against the pass. They love to operate in man coverage, which if you dive into the numbers, and I won't bore you with all the details, but it is a supreme weakness for Justin Herbert. You know, we're seeing him, you know, with a considerably lower, like 86 to 112 comparison in terms of his success as a QB passer, you know, man coverage versus zone coverage. It's not even close. You know, couple that with the fact that we don't know how Patrick Surtain is going to be deployed in this one, assuming that he is right. If he's lined up, let's say, you know, sort of shadowing Ladd McConkey, all of a sudden you're relying on Quentin Johnston and Joshua Palmer and guys like that. I just think it could be a long day for the Chargers offense. And so, again, that has me leaning anyway toward the Broncos side, but nothing in this game is going to truly shock me.
Yeah, me either. It's a tough one to call. I got to make a pick in my pool, though, Adam, so you didn't give me a pick there. I'm going to have to make my own
likewise.
pick. Yeah, all right, fine. Bo Nix tonight, coming off a rough game yesterday. How about his anytime touchdown? Bo Nix minus 140? I mean, Nix has been so good all year. He has one bad game. All of a sudden, they're like, yeah, he's going to throw a pick tonight, too. Minus 140 on the anytime pick. Passing touchdowns over 1.5 plus 138. And his passing yards, that seems like a fair number, 223. Do you like anything there?
Honestly, I would lean toward the under with both quarterback passing yards, Nix and Herbert. I think we're getting a low-scoring primetime game, which, shouldn't shock people, obviously. In fact, there are trends here. How about some of this? I was reading this on Covers earlier. Chargers games have gone under in 15 of their last 19 divisional home games. Broncos games have gone under in 16 of their last 21 divisional road games, and 10 of the last 11 meetings between these two teams specifically have also gone under. So I just think there's going to be an absence of points in general, and that to me means obviously a lack of passing yards, barring moving the ball efficiently between the 20s and leading to mistakes or stalling out in the red zone, kicking field goals, that type of thing. I don't love the interception numbers. Not that, I'd be all that shocked, obviously, if Nix or even Herbert, who's considerably more efficient, only has 2 INTs so far in the year. I wouldn't be overly surprised if either one threw an interception, just because I do respect both of these defenses, which again plays into the under, but I don't think anything with the quarterbacks is overly appealing. I think that probably the one prop in this game that does jump out at me that is not an amazing prop by any means. Looking at all the different projection sort of services, models, that type of thing that I like to pay attention to going into games like this. There is support for McConkey going over on his receiving yards, which you could still get as low as 64.5, and depending on where you look, it's up near 70. It just feels like a low total, considering, again, there's the Surtain factor, which I don't know. But let's say, I'm wrong, and Surtain is sticking close to Quentin Johnston, and McConkey has more room over in the middle of the field. We know that he is obviously the guy for Herbert. That is who Herbert would like to be looking toward. Feels like a low number coming in sub 70. So even if Herbert does come under on his passing yards, I think most of that production is going to be filtered toward McConkey, who should, to me, go for 70-plus receiving in this game.
Okay, well, there you go. There's Herbert's props as well. I'm going to breeze through these real quick. 228.5 in the passing yards, 1.5 passing touchdowns, and his anytime touchdown, as you can see, plus 122. 20 or 30 seconds here, Adam, because I do want to get to the other games. Any feeling on the Herbert game tonight? I think you sort of set the script here. You think it's a low-scoring game, picks are possible, and it's a divisional game, and so unders are in play. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it feels like that's what you're saying here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do look toward his passing under. I know it's not a gigantic number, but he's actually gone well under this in 4 out of his last 5 games. In fact, he is averaging below 200 passing yards in 4 out of his last 5, or 5 out of his last 6, actually, if you want to take it a step further. And again, just the unpredictability of this high ankle sprain, assuming that he's going to have to try and get the ball out of his hands quickly, the pressure that's going to be applied by that Broncos defense getting to the passer. I think he's just going to be sort of flinging it and slinging it, so to speak, but I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of accuracy attached to it. So I don't think it's going to be a great night for Herbert. I don't.
All right, Eagles and Commanders, and this is my team since the beginning of the season, Adam, picking the Commanders. I'm the silly one. I picked the Commanders to go all the way to the NFC Championship with a shot to go to the Super Bowl. I'm not backing off that, even though I know they could have lost to the Saints, could have lost to the Bears. I get it. But why are the Eagles only 3.5-point favorites in this game? I feel like that's the public move here. 3.5-point favorites total, 45.5. I mean, these teams are playing for jockeying within the seedings, but they're really not playing for the playoffs. Both teams are going to be in. I still have some concerns for Washington, Adam. I'm not going to lie. They haven't looked great. Phillies look like the best team in the NFC. But there's a reason they make these point spreads, right? They don't make them to lose. They make them to build another hotel.
Well, look, where I'll push back a little bit, I would tend to agree with you that your Commanders here are going to be a playoff team. And then obviously once you get into the dance, anything is possible. But I wouldn't say that's etched in stone. I mean, the Eagles are going to win this division. Obviously, it's a massively important game for Washington, if the Commanders have any hope of taking the division. But Philadelphia, it's going to win the NFC East, may even win the NFC in general for the regular season anyway, because as we know, tied for the top spot with both Detroit and Minnesota record-wise. But Washington is sitting right now in the seventh and final spot in the NFC in terms of playoff teams, and has just I'm looking at it right now, a one-game lead. That's it, a one-game lead on Seattle, sitting one game behind Green Bay. So it's, the bottom of that conference at the moment in terms of the playoff push is pretty jammed up. If we see Washington lose a couple games in a row, which is not out of the question, and Seattle, which I don't really believe, is going to get hot, and, Washington could fall out. So, Jaden Daniels, at least the feather in his cap is when these teams matched up back in mid-November and Washington collapsed toward the end. Philadelphia scored 20 fourth quarter points to escape and win that game. In that contest, Daniels was not right. He was still dealing with the rib injury. He's healthy now. I think he is going to be better. That being said, it does feel Philly is the side.
All right. Giants, Falcons. The Michael Penix era begins as a 7.5-point favorite. Rookie quarterback. 7.5-point favorites in the NFL. Oof.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I don't know.
But backing the Giants is also nuts. So it should probably just be a stay away spot. I just can't believe Atlanta did this still in a playoff hunt. But it goes to show how bad Kirk Cousins has been.
Yeah, it really has. All right, Adam. Happy holidays. Thanks again.
Same to you.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all, because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
So happy to have Mike Berardino back on the show. We just wanted to have him on for the holiday season and not talk about where he's going to be spending his Friday night this week. Mike, great to have you back here to preview the big game, and happy holidays to you. It's always great catching up with you. And hey, at the beginning of the season, we said you'd be back on this show again. Here you are.
You did. You kept your word, and thank you. And yes, happy holidays to you and your crew.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, a fun Friday night. We'll get to that first. Okay, so The big story for Notre Dame over the past week or two, I don't think is even as much as the fact that the college football playoffs are here on Friday night, which we'll get to, but the fact that we know that Marcus Freeman is going to be the head coach of the Irish moving forward. And you've been through this and on top of this and covering Notre Dame now for years. What is your opinion of Freeman, very now highly paid coach at Notre Dame? Has he done a good job? Do you feel like this was warranted?
Absolutely. This season could have gone sideways a few different times, most notably, as everyone knows, the Northern Illinois loss in week 2. But even in the immediate aftermath of that game, the poise that Freeman showed, the leadership, the lack of finger pointing, the accountability, all the things you ask out of your players, he displays on his own publicly and behind closed doors in the football building. And Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director, former NBC Sports chairman, only took over as athletic director in March for Jack Swarbrick, but he'd been around. Pete had been around since last summer, basically in an apprentice or shadowing role, which was wise because it gave him a chance to know Marcus Freeman now across 2 football seasons. And so the comfort level was there. There's a new university president here in Father Bob Dowd. The board of trustees has new leadership. So there were a lot of personalities that had to make sure there was compatibility, because Marcus Freeman was inherited by this new athletic director. But the fit is good, and the NFL, whatever rumors were out there for now, can calm, and whatever happens at Ohio State, his alma mater, Freeman's, that can also look elsewhere.
Yeah, I thought that was the key. The Buckeye stuff is what I was reading about, but it looks like, again, now with this contract, maybe the NFL is in the future in a year or two. We'll see. So, Mike, Friday night, Notre Dame is going to take on Indiana. They got into the college football playoff despite that loss, which was brutal, maybe one of the worst ones in all of the college football playoff teams, as you mentioned, against Northern Illinois, off the strength of wins in the top 25. But, Mike, different strength for Notre Dame because, generally speaking, as you know, when they play Army and Navy and some of the academies, those games have been closer than what they thought, but not this year. They blew those teams out. They beat Louisville, and then, of course, they have that win against Texas A&M. Do you think that where they were seated is fair? Do you think that that is a fair seed for A&M, or I'm sorry, for Notre Dame to be the 7th seed out of 12?
Fair or not, it works well for them. Pete Bavacqua has no complaints. He spoke to the media the other day, and they just wanted the home playoff game. But when you look at what if they could, Notre Dame could get past this first one, and this is going to be a tough one. Indiana has the coach has a chip on his shoulder at all times, and he's transplanted that into that team, and that's always a tough opponent. But Georgia with the Carson Beck situation would be waiting in the Sugar Bowl for the winner of this game, and then beyond that, it could be a Penn State, which never comes through in a big situation, and so far, and or a Boise or an SMU. So it's not a bad path to a potential final against the other side of the bracket that appears more loaded. Fair, I would have seen Notre Dame ahead of Penn State as a seed possibly, but the committee kind of was making it up on the fly, it seemed like, and we'd get to follow along every Tuesday night with the Ward Manual Power Hour, and we're done with that now. Now they can play it, but I don't think Notre Dame should have any complaints about how it's set up because those aforementioned teams are all vulnerable. In fact, you could make a case for just about any of the 12 to run the table.
Yeah, and you're already hearing, and we don't know how these are going to go, but we're already hearing before these games are played. It's so funny, Mike. They added the college football playoff. They rewarded the teams for playing at home. We're already hearing, oh, this isn't fair. The spreads are big. Maybe they should be in neutral sites. Already starting to hear this even before the games are played. The Irish have dominated what they would call the middle 8, the last 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the second half. And basically it's been on the strength of their defense in terms of points allowed. For some reason, they're able to buckle down in those minutes. And I don't really have any explanation for it, but it does just seem to be the overall theme that Notre Dame's offense is good and good enough, but it is their defense that's been able to really carry them in the big moments.
Yeah, that whole middle 8 thing, I hope Dabo Sweeney got patent protection on that. I hope he copyrighted it because he really popularized that with the Clemson run. It's a couple of championships, couple of runner-ups, and they're back. They're back in this thing. But the middle 8, you hear that, and that's correct. One of the things I was looking at, Craig, I'd like to share some research with you, if it's okay.
Yes.
Along those lines, I have some research, and both Indiana and Notre Dame have these high-powered offenses, and you look at the average scoring per game, and they're right up there, number 2, number 3 in the country. Indiana's got 70 touchdowns credited to its offense. But my complaint, here's my biggest complaint as I sit here today on the eve of this thing. We've got to find a way to adjust those scoring offense averages, those rankings, to reflect a defense that's doing the dirty work for the offense, if not putting the ball over the goal line. Notre Dame has 6 defensive touchdowns this year. 2 of those were in the USC game. They don't survive that situation without those 2 pick sixes at the end, field length pick sixes. But Indiana has 2 defensive scores too, plus a safety. And then the other thing Notre Dame does that nobody talks about, they set you up on the doorstep with that defense handing the ball over to the offense. Notre Dame's offense taken over at the plus 25 or closer 7 times on its touchdowns this year. So those are almost gimmies. And I know red zone you can bog down, but Notre Dame hasn't. They've completed the task. But that defense, you're right, Craig, it is elite.
Yeah, we talked about the beginning of the season, especially the pass defense, how that was going to be a big factor in the game. What is there a weather factor here in this game tonight? I know Indiana sees bad weather too, so maybe it's not. But what is the weather calling for in a playoff college football game this time of the year, a home game? We got to go in 20 seconds.
Okay, I'm not a meteorologist, but they're calling for mid-20s in the evening and a couple inches of snow during the day. I don't think it'll be sideways snow, but I think some of the best things you can do is have quarterback run, design quarterback run.
Bye, Mike.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all, because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Hey, an owner in sports charging less money to eat and drink at their stadium. This is really happening. It's really happening, but it's only in one city. But maybe somebody else will take a cue. Also, we'll get to the latest sack dance in college football and a lot more. Time now for some last licks. Big Boca Raton Bowl win for James Madison University last night. They got the win. It's their first ever in a bowl game, and they went a little overboard. Or did they? I don't know. Never seen this before. There was a sack dance from a player that played on JMU yesterday. After the sack, he decided to take a bow and arrow, fake bow and arrow. You can't really see this from my face. There you go. I'm real small in the screen. A bow and arrow and fire it at the players on the other team. This is what he did. This actually happened. Was there a penalty? I didn't see. I don't think that there was a penalty for this, but needless to say, I thought that you couldn't use any firearms or anything like that. I know that there's a player that got a 15-yard penalty in the NFL last week for doing the Marshawn Lynch celebration. But either way, pretty funny, pretty inventive. We try to be funny here at the end of the show if we can. James Madison taking advantage of every opportunity to stick it to Western Kentucky last night. Ellie De La Cruz, playing internationally in a very random game, showed up to play in the Winter League wearing his all-star jersey. This is a true story, folks. It was posted yesterday on social media, so it has to be true. There it is. Ellie De La Cruz, who was an all-star in the National League this past year, a prolific stolen base threat, also an all-star in the NL, played in this game and wanted to remind everybody who he was. Could have worn his Reds uniform, could have worn the Winter League team's uniform, but nope, showed up, played in his National League all-star uniform. Now, by the way, what makes this most interesting, folks, I don't know if you remember this story from the offseason, but starting next year, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game no longer going to wear AL and NL uniforms. They're going back to the 80s and the 90s, and they're going to be wearing their actual jerseys in the game. So, in fact, that is a piece of history right there from Ellie De La Cruz. The last time a player, maybe ever, wears an all-star jersey from the game that was not his own team's, the leagues, right there. So there it is. Ellie De La Cruz made history yesterday. I just realized that here on the show today. All right, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, who apparently is trying to do a lot of different things in sports, maybe buying other teams, Matt Ishbia, he's the owner of the Suns. Get to know his name pretty well because he made an announcement for people who are going to Suns games in the future, a new concession stand pricing for 2025. $2 hot dogs, $2 waters, $2 sodas, $2 chips, I'll need more specific on that, and $2 popcorn. A family of four used to spend $98 on hot dogs, water, and popcorn, but will now pay $24 instead. I've always wondered why other teams in sports, ownership groups, front offices, business models don't charge less for concessions. And the reason that they give is they hire another company, and the other company, they're the ones that handle concessions. But to me, this is a great way to get people to buy more stuff because in the end, it's less pricing. They're probably going to buy more because it's cheap, and then it comes out to the same thing anyway. So I like this idea. And Ishbia is really making a lot of headway for potentially buying other teams in sports. We'll end up seeing if that happens. Needless to say, I'm nowhere near Phoenix, but hopefully in South Florida, this is happening as well. That'll do it for our show today. Thanks so much for everybody watching. And, of course, thanks to our guest contributors of the program today. Thanks to Mike Berardino for coming on the program. Thanks to Matt Lutovsky as well. And thanks to all of you for watching the program, no doubt about that. In addition, I want to thank our director, Luke, and also our producer, Frank. And stick around because we got great programming coming up, including a preview of Thursday Night Football on Scott Farrell's show. Farrell Coast to Coast, 3 o'clock Eastern. That's coming up, followed by Game Time Decisions, Pro Football Today, In-Game Live, Pro Football Game Day, and then Pro Football Today post-game. Those are our shows today. Also, as a side note, I want to mention this because once upon a time, I was in a documentary. I don't know if you ever saw that one, the Derek Jeter, the captain. We have somebody else who's in a documentary. Now, maybe only his voice, but I was watching the Aaron Rodgers documentary last night. Did you guys know Scott Farrell? Scott Farrell had comments in that documentary. It had to be Scott Farrell. You can't make that up. I got to text Farrell. I don't know if does he even know? Does anybody know that he's in that thing? He's in the first 10 minutes of this Aaron Rodgers documentary. I didn't get to finish it. I don't know if I'm going to even finish it. It's a little slow, to be honest with you. I'm looking forward to Squid Game too. That'll be my watching coming up for next week. All right, so that'll do it. I just rambled on there for the last 30 seconds of the show. Hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire here on SportsGrid.